I am the curator for the Bierman Gallery here in the Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Museum. That's where we are. We're in Fells Point, Baltimore. And this place is amazing. This is the pier that Isaac Myers worked on. He had a business here. It was a boat building business, a caulking business, and Frederick Douglass worked for him as a caulker prior to his manumission of himself from slavery. So it's my honor to bring social justice work into this gallery. Again, I am Kibidia Junku, and I welcome Black Art today. We are getting ready to hear from Lisa Clark. Put your hands together.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's able to come out, and all of those of you that are out there in virtual land. My name is Lisa Clark. I am the co-founder and vice president for the Black Art Today Foundation. We're a 501c3 public charity that provides services, artist-related services to aspiring and emerging and established artists. Our primary mission is the preservation of culture through the arts. We're here today to have an artist talk with three of our artists that are participating in the Resilience Unveiled exhibit here at the Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Bierman Gallery in Fells Point. And I'd like to introduce them. From my left, your right, is Dr. Vanessa Chappelle Lee, Mr. David Cassidy, and the artist known as Quirky. All right, thank you. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with Dr. Chappelle Lee, and she can start. She can do a short introduction about who you are, and you can pass it down to David, and then we're going to get into some questions.
Sure. Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation to be a part of this exhibit today. My name is Vanessa Chappelle Lee. I live in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, with my husband and my dog, Chloe. My husband is Marty, and my dog is Chloe. So let me make sure I make that clarification. I've lived in Maryland now for like 45 years. I grew up in New York City. I consider myself a self-made artist. However, I really can't take total claim for that because I used to watch my mother, who was a seamstress, and my mother, I used to watch her. She used to help me learn how to sew. And so I really can't take total claim for that. But back in 2017, I started doing painting. And my husband had asked me if I wanted to do something for my birthday. I was like, nah, just buy me some paint. He was like, paint? You never heard that in all the years that we had been married. And I said, yeah, I just want some paint. And so I started painting. Now I'm about 700 pieces later. I've been doing some paint, and I started curating some art with Black Art Today back here last year. My neighbors, Carol and Wayne, they said, you gotta stop just hiding all your art. I said, I'm not hiding it. You know, people are commissioning me, and I'm selling art, and I'm doing art late nights and early mornings, and I'm going to work for Prince George's County government. And they said, but no, Vanessa, you have to do an exhibit. We did an art exhibit, and the rest is history. Black Art Today has been keeping me very busy. And so it's been a blessing. My name is out there, and I really do appreciate that. So that's who I am, and thank you for coming out today.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is David Williams Michael Cassidy. And I like using my two middle names because most of my life I only thought I had one. Then I got a hold of my birth certificate and found out that I had two middle names because my mother did not want a junior, so she gave me an extra name. Really interesting because I live in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and that's how I came in contact with Black Art Today. I decided that I wanted to be a part of some kind of art community, so I just Googled Black Art in Upper Marlboro, and I came up with Black Art Today. And so I talked with one of the, I don't know if I call you guys curators or what. But we met at the post office
UPS.
by Costco over in, what was it, Largo?
Woodmore. Yeah.
Yes, Woodmere Shopping Center, what have you. And so she looked at my work that I had put together in a book. And we decided that we were going to work together. And it has just been phenomenal for me. I've never seen two people work harder for artists than these two persons right here. And I've done art in Philadelphia, Nashville, Tennessee, um, and now here. And just enjoying it. I would say that I was self-taught, although I did take some art classes in high school. My art teacher kept telling me my work was garbage. And I decided that I wasn't going to take it personally. I was going to create something that would not be garbage in his eyes. And then later on, I got a chance to talk with him, and I think he really meant it was garbage. I thought, you have a person who's working at a black school teaching black artists to do artwork, and he was very, very, very good with what he was doing. But then I found out there's just a little bit of that white supremacy going on in there. And so I no longer claim that person as being an inspiration. But one day in 1974, I went home from college. Was, I think, the first and last time I ever went home from college. After that, I learned I'm not going back there no more. And because there was just really nothing to do. And my father wasn't giving me any money. I think that summer he gave me $20. So I took the money that I did have that I brought with me. I went to the art store and decided that I was going to teach myself to paint because I had been drawing. And I got bored with that. So I went and I bought canvases, I bought brushes, I bought paints, and what else did I buy? And probably something else. I had no idea what to do with it whatsoever. So I spent the whole summer learning how to do a painting. And my first painting was Miss Jane Pittman. And that was my first painting. And from there, I did another piece, and it was called Exercise to Music. And somebody offered my father's girlfriend $2,000 for it. I said, oh, this might be a good thing to continue. So I've been really painting ever since.
Hello, my name is Corky. I'm a Baltimore-based artist, and I've been painting, I guess, now for 7 years, and it's the best relationship I've ever had in my life. I treat my art like she's my lady. I go home pretty much and say, what do you want to do tonight? And she'll tell me, whether it's sculpting or painting or anything like that. She's my driving force. Like, if it wasn't for this event, I'll be home with her right now. We doing something like that. I'm happy I became an artist. This is the happiest I've ever been in my life. Stress levels are at the lowest. I let things fall on my back easier. It's more time I spend painting. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, what we'd like to do now is for you to to talk a little bit about your pieces and how it reflects the curatorial statement for Resilience Unveiled. How does your piece fit into that? Vanessa, your piece, you have one of your pieces right behind you. So let's talk about that piece.
Sure. So the first piece that I'm going to talk to you about is entitled, I Got Your Back. So you see this woman that's standing, she's boldly sitting out front, and there's a figure that's behind. And so the title speaks, I got your back. A lot of times women are out front and they're boldly doing what they do on a daily basis, mothers, sisters, aunties, you name it. And they sometimes don't even know that somebody is anchoring them. So the person in behind them is sometimes they're seen and sometimes they're unseen. And so that's why I titled that. It's acrylic with sand. And I use sand because sometimes sand helps to bring out the depth and gives it more texture. And so, yeah, and it's also a representation of strength. So that's why that piece is present. And then the second piece over here is titled, the mic doesn't go, it's titled Knowledge is Power. So I did this piece back in 2018. So it was a year after I got back to painting, right? And so my husband, he loves to read. And so when I look at this piece, it does remind me of him, but also when you look at resilience, and you think of the title Resilience Unveiled, back in the day when slaves could not read, they had to sneak off and read. So if you would notice, there's a number 2 pencil. Can you imagine if they found them reading and with a number 2 pencil, taking documentation of things? So that's, this piece right here reminds me of slaves having to sneak and learn how to read, and also the mere fact that they could hold a pencil and document their events and what have you. So that's this title is all about. And again, this is acrylic on canvas.
Thank you, Vanessa. Next up, we will have David Cassidy.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna walk around and say you can twist into what.
No problem. Go over there. I
But
need
want
you.
them to see that.
Yeah, I want them to see the piece.
I'll do that. Behind here, all right. The piece that I submitted for this project is right here in the center, and it is entitled, Their Eyes Were Watching God. And one of the things that I like to do with my paintings are to tell a story. Because story is really so African, because we did a lot of things we did right. There is all kinds of evidence of books in Africa. Egypt was a great place. The Dogon and other persons were documenting African history. But one of the things that we did was we told stories. It was a griot. So a lot of the history was passed down from person to person through different kinds of narrative. And so in this piece here, Their Eyes Were Watching God, I took that title straight from Zora Neale Hurston, who is an excellent storyteller. And that book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, is one that's a favorite of mine. So within this narrative here, I have a whole bunch of different kinds of black males. And one of the things that I want to do is to talk about black male spirituality. Because now the only thing that we hear about black males is they abandon the family, and they are gangsters and robbers and thieves and murderers and those different kinds of things. Well, black male spirituality has always been with African American men, from the days of being enslaved to the Reconstruction, to the Civil Rights Movement, and till now. So I concentrated on the eyes in this piece. And so you see the eyes are all bright and seem to be reflecting a light. And since God is light, when they look at God, that light reflects through their eyes. So they're able to see themselves in God, and they're able to see God in each other. The words at the top of the painting is written in an ancient Ethiopian language called Amharic. And it's taken from Isaiah chapter 6 is, I saw the Lord, which would be the interpretation. So I decided to put that in there just to give that an ancient backdrop, so that people can go back and look up and study the ancient African language in Ethiopia, Amharic, and Ge'ez, which has no component of any other language on the face of the earth. And Ethiopia, what people don't know, was the one African continent that has never been colonized. They just couldn't get to it because of the structures, the hills, and the different things of that nature. So the whole idea of the eyes of watching God is that black males indeed are attentive. You know, they do go to church and mosque and synagogue and different places like that. And so, in fact, the whole history of Christianity is based in Northeast Africa. And the theology that has taken place there was written by Northeast Africans for the most part. So, this painting here is oil on canvas, the original. This one here is called a giclée, and one of my favorite pieces. And I wanted to be able to say something for this show that I've already said to show my resilience.
All right, thank you, David. Next coming up is Corky.
Well, I think this especially for this show. More than I read the description they wanted. Chocolate here, the certain parts popped in my head. It's one song by Tyler Quali is knowledge of self, self-determination. And I really delved into that. So when the name of it is called exert focus, not force, exert focus and not force. I find that if I try to exert force in this situation, it goes bad for me. I get judged, I get criticized for doing so. But when I put it to a focus, this focus on myself, focus on what my goals are, or just what I'm trying to accomplish, I move things, I move myself, I move the world. So when I was painting this, I wanted just to show that somebody pulling themselves up, not by the bootstraps. You really can't do that. But actually using a pulley to pull oneself out of their poverty, out of their situation, out of their depression. And I really love what the colors came out. I normally don't paint in colors, but I really enjoyed this piece a lot. And thank you guys for having me.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to ask a few questions. Artists get settled here. So I prepared a few questions, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience. So I'm going to just start and go in a row here. Vanessa, so what has been the most challenging painting you've ever created and why?
The most, yeah, okay, good question. I had to think for a minute. The most challenging painting, and it does not have a title, and it makes me emotional, was when I did a piece, I was working on a piece as my mother was transitioning, and so that's been the most difficult. And it was because she was transitioning. And I was unable to finish it, and while I was working on it, I was like, wow, I couldn't understand why I was having such a difficult time finishing this piece. And after she passed away, I was able to finish it, maybe 2 months later. So that was the most difficult piece. And that was the reason.
All right.
Wow, thank you for that.
Wow. Same for you, David.
One of my most difficult pieces that I did get an opportunity to display down here was called Race, Religion, and Revolt. It was difficult because the motivation for that piece of artwork came out of the Brown killing in St. Louis. The boy was left in the street, dead or dying, and he was there for hours and hours on end. And what affected me about that whole situation is that the response of the people were to take it to the streets. That's what we've always done, take it to the street. Who was that? The Doobie Brothers were saying that song, taking it to the street. And so I did a piece, and it was reflecting how violent the response was to trying to calm folks down who had just had a violent experience. Not the first one, but one among many. And so the piece entitled, A Person Who Was in the Middle of the Street, and actually it was the middle of the street in Philadelphia, and the person is being crucified right in the middle of the street. And then on either side there were two persons being crucified in a different manner on each of the crosses. So it's very reminiscent of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And one of the things that motivated that still was James Cone's book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree, and how the cross very much mimicked or pointed to what you do with people you can't control. You get rid of them, you move them out of the way, and what have you. You kill them, you marginalize them, you separate them from their families and their communities and what have you, and so that you can promote your rule, your wish, your ideas, your supremacist thinking. And so in that piece, you find that there are two cities. One is Nashville, okay, for the deep south, and another one was Philadelphia for the deep north, right? Because racism in this country is north, south, east, and west. There's no more racism in the southern states than there is in the northern states. And I know I grew up in California, and Compton, I was there for the Watts riot. So I understand how this resistance and how the resilience must be. The other thing about that piece that I did, I also had religious persons in there from the biblical period, from the Roman soldiers and what have you, to the police department and the popo and the helicopters flying over, which I experienced living in Compton, California. Every night, there were bright lights and helicopters and gunshots and different things of that nature. And to be able to make it out of that and to survive that was a great point of resilience of African peoples and persons in these United States. So I think that was one of my most difficult and complicated pieces.
The most difficult one, I don't take long paintings at all. Maybe a day or 2 days I can produce a painting. I worked on this painting for a year, and it was of George Floyd. I don't like painting us when we are victims of anything instantly. It bothers me. I don't want to profit off of other people's death. So when I finally got the concept of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, I cried through the pain the entire time. It just drained me. I would look at it and I knew I needed to finish it and just tax it. I never take long to take paintings, and that took me a year to get it done. But I think I did a great job, and the family actually reached out to me and contacted me about the painting. It was just a beautiful experience. And yeah, that's it.
Sure. Okay, so, next question, and you've already kind of answered it, but have you ever used painting as a form of social commentary?
Reason I go by alias right now, because I used to get death threats. And I painted Reagan, Bush with all their sins. I tattooed their sins on their face. They were like Bloods and Crips. And when I started receiving death threats, it was surreal, but the best way to keep the people in line is to keep them fearful. But they can never contact me. They can't get in contact with my family. Only my true friends know my real name. Most people in Baltimore still don't know my name.
Right.
And I changed up my style. I haven't done anything political in a while, but yeah, that was scary. But the best way to keep the people in line is keep them fearful. So that's why I go by alias.
Political art, my middle name.
It's true.
One of the things that I say is that all art is political because it is social commentary. It is the conscience of a person coming to canvas so that those who are looking at the canvas can see the person's consciousness, but they can also reflect their own values. Because people viewing art, to me, is like reader response criticism. And the reader adds to the narrative because of their own personal histories and experience with the subject matter. So that no matter what you put on canvas, somebody else is gonna come and see it, and they're gonna have a different interpretation than what the artist has. And that interpretation is legitimate. The best thing I think one can do with art is to tell the story. Now, there's some people, I used to have a friend of mine, he was an artist, he would have you, his art was always pretty. Matter of fact, if it wasn't pretty, he didn't think it was good art. And he always told me that my art was ugly because of the subject matters and the things that I did. But I think art is not decoration. Some people use it for decoration, and you know, you do what you want to do with that. But art, good art, goes anywhere with everything. It just does. You buy the piece because it speaks to you emotionally, and because you want to say something to other people who come to your home and witness the collection of the artwork that you have. So I've done political work. We did an artist show in Nashville, Tennessee. We called it with artists with attitudes, kind of like NWA. But the whole point of it was right at the time when Rodney King was beaten up pretty severely in the streets of Los Angeles. Rodney King almost killed, yes. And so I did a piece at that time where these cops had beat up this man, and he had faces in his chest. He had shoe marks all over, and you could see the cops. And I always called the police officers long-armed, as in the long arm of the law. And the shoe prints all over he was beaten. And the title of the piece was, "How Many Kings Does It Take?" And so always making that commentary so that we can look at our situation and be able to say stuff without saying it, so people can see stuff by seeing it. No, yeah, I'll let you work that one out later.
I think David said it all.
Next question. Okay, so this is gonna be the last question from us, and then we're gonna open it up to the people that are attending. How does your life philosophy influence your artistic expressions?
Well, I live by the philosophy that I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So art strengthens me because I use art as a therapeutic outlet. I'm a mental health provider, and so when I start doing art, I don't set out to do a particular color. I don't set out to do a particular thing or draw or anything like that. I allow the art to speak to me, and it's cathartic. And so whatever comes out of it at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm pleased. And sometimes I get so lost in it, I mean, hours can go by. And I'm like, oh my God, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I have to go to work. Or as I'm leaving to go to work, I'll do a piece of work. I'm like, wow, that's great. Maybe I need to start doing more as I'm going out to work. So art speaks to me, and I truly do believe I did not have a clue of what I was doing. I just got paint, like I said, in 2017. 700 pieces later. I mean, I've done sneakers. I've taken sneakers and deconstructed it and made art out of it. I use all kinds of textiles. I use all kinds of materials, upcycled materials, metals. I love metals. I love working with metals. So I allow the art to speak to me. I think one of the panelists said the same thing. And then just get back to David's question because it was just so loaded. Again, art is in the eyes of the beholder. So art does a whole lot to people. As a mental health provider, colors does a lot to people. It speaks to the person. I could set out to interpret it as one thing. The title might say one thing. Somebody will come to my house, as you all have, and say, oh no, that should be titled X, or it says something else to me. So art is in the eyes of the beholder. But I do believe I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Thank you.
What was that question again?
How does your life philosophy influence your artistic expression?
Well, I'm a very spiritual person at heart. The one thing that I did not want to do, I didn't want to be typecasted because of my religious history into a person who only painted religious art. Because then I would not be saying everything that could be said by using my artistic skills to do different things. There's a lot of religious paintings that I have painted. And one of the things I like to do, though, is to challenge people's belief systems by looking at a religious situation differently. One of the things that I did for Dr. Forrest Harris at the National Baptist College in Nashville, Tennessee, I did a cover for his book. And the title of the book was, "What Does It Mean to Be Black and a Christian?" And so what I did on that was a painting that was called The Lynching of Jesus Christ. There's always that narrative of what happens when dominant culture and society decides to oppress a person or group of persons in a community, nation, or state. And so that has been the hallmark of what I try to do. Telling the story, the griot, and whatever story that I can tell is one that has really, impacted me. I've come to learn that there are so many different kinds of art and levels of art. When you go into the museums, you see one thing, okay? But the one thing you don't see is us. And so we had to be able to create our own narratives and our own art stories and what have you. And then exhibits like this helps us to tell a story that doesn't get often told or revealed. So Black art today, that's my kind of philosophy. I try to do today. Now I do some back in the day stuff, okay? But one thing that I like to do is I like to tell the story the way I see it. And hopefully that's in line with history most of the time it is.
Well, like I said, begin to treat art as a relationship, but I had to think of a model I use all the time. I think I'll be ashamed to die until I score some victory for art. And I don't feel like I've done it. So I paint and create every day. So I can make that ground as fertile for me to do something amazing all the time. Sometimes it doesn't work, but I enjoy the time doing it.
Okay. All right. So, do you have any questions for the artist? You need a
I
microphone?
got a whole book here.
Okay. Could I get your name?
Yes.
Did you get the mic? Actually, you can go up front so I can kind of capture you and you can say your name.
Okay. No, that's right.
Well, you can just introduce yourself, and then you can step back. Good.
Hello, artists, and thank you, Black Art Today, for having this symposium and getting us more closely related to our emerging artists out here in Maryland and in Baltimore. And my name is Andrea Jane Wheeler. I am an artist, legacy artist. My great aunt is Laura Wheeler Waring. You may be able to see some of her work in the Smithsonian, and she's painted notable Black folks from the 1800s on up. So this is a fascinating discussion. I'm going to take my seat and ask a couple of questions.
Okay. Yeah, either one of them.
Yes. Just
All
fine.
right.
Yes. So Dr. Shapiro, I love
Chappelle Lee.
Chappelle
Thank
Lee.
you. Dr.
Like
Shapiro.
Dave Chappelle.
Oh, that's better. Thank you. Thank you. So question for you, I was fascinated by your story. Like it's just like popped up for you to create. And it just popped up in your life, like
Did it
out
pop?
of
No,
nowhere.
it didn't just pop up. So, going back. So when I was in kindergarten, I won the art contest, right? And so my kindergarten teacher said, "Oh, you need to go to art school." And I did. I went to art school for a year, I think it was. I think that was part of the prize that I got to go to art school. So I went to art school, and as I said earlier, my mother was a seamstress. That was her life's work. And so my mother used to, she showed me how to make patterns out of newspaper. And so my mother was very creative. My grandmother, she would take the bottom of a pair of pants and she would make a hat out of it. Like, So I was always around creative people, right? I have sisters that are caterers. So I was always around people that was very creative. And I love doing home interior. My husband doesn't like it, but I do. I put a lot of holes in the wall and then he has to repair it. So I was always doing something creative. But in 2017, something just sparked in me that says, paint. And I was like, whoa, that's all right, something for me to do. Because I love working with my hands. I love doing something busy. I love decorating the house. But why not? And then that was the other thing too. I wanted to do original art and purchase original art. So I can do it myself. And that's what happened. And that's exactly how I got started back in 2017.
Wow, okay, just a quick follow-up. Do you have a supportive spouse? That's
Do
a
I?
big deal in art world or any business. Do you have a
Why do you want
supportive?
me to admit that on camera?
Next question.
My husband is super duper supportive. So let me just tell you how, all right? And bring it into the art. When Black Art Today called me and said, Vanessa, we have an art exhibit and we need this, that, and the other. And they have some of my art, they have some of the listing of the titles and whatnot. Guess who has to take it over there to the house? I said, Marty, I need you to go and take this over to Black Art Today. He's very supportive. And he also hangs the art in the house. He takes the art to Black Art Today. He tells me he titles a lot of the artwork. He comes up with a lot of the titles. And so he's very supportive. And he's gonna love me for asking that question. How dare
He's
you?
invested. I didn't want to take up all the airtime, so.
No,
go ahead, go ahead.
All right, David.
But I will say, husbands are incredible.
I have a husband.
I got a husband too, so okay.
Yeah. So David, thank you so much for sharing your background, and I really stuck in on that spirituality part. Can you just tell me, like, when did that grab to you? When did you figure out a higher power for you?
I think sometime during high school, and then maybe also during the civil rights movement. I mean, as a young child, when I heard Martin Luther King speak, that was like, Negroes talk like that? That was because where I came from, you didn't hear that. It was not in my school. It was not in my neighborhood. And so I would sit there fascinated in front of the TV set, which was black and white, well, no color.
Right.
And listening to him talk and talk about things like justice, like rights, like equality, those different kinds of things. He and Malcolm X, who was direct. And people know me. I can be very direct. I don't pull punches. I try to be more tactful now that I'm older. But the whole idea is that I grew up in like a spiritual family. Everybody in my family was in church some type of way. Okay. My grandfather was a bishop. My grandmother, she worked with people like Prophet Jones and Father Divine and those folks back then. You don't know about that? Look that up and you begin to hear those stories. My grandmother, she was really into what do they call it? Necessarily African traditional religion. But I don't want to say hoodoo and voodoo and those different kinds of things. But my grandmother used to work those powers. And she used to have this book called The Seven Keys to the Power. And my grandmother would listen to people talk about her through the waters, to come through the waters of the shower. She would hear the voices and different things that were going on. People would come to her house and they would drop stuff. And you've heard about the goober dust and
No.
all of the but those things people would drop around the house. And one time we walked in the house together, there was this fish tank, and there was these two black pop-eyed fish that was swimming in her tank. He said, "Oh no, somebody did this. Those aren't my fish." She waved her hand over the tank and spoke a few words, and the fish floated up and died. So that was kind of like opening my eyes to there's something out there, that's kind of different. And then growing up in the church setting, we grew up in church. We had church in the living room, and then living in the other rooms in the house. And I used
With the fish?
no, that was grandmother's house. That's somebody else. But I used to sleepwalk, and I would walk, and they would find me sleeping on the altar at the church, or they would find me in the kitchen sleeping in the oven. So either way, I was getting some fire.
Wow.
But
That's
Spirituality.
And the altitude.
yeah,
Spirituality.
so that was kind of like, yeah, how I came in. And just like her, in kindergarten, I did a piece of a penguin. It was black, white, and red. And it was so good that they took me around the whole school and had me show all the classes, the teams, and everything. Yes. And so that was kind of like a fun. Oh, you got something there.
Deep answer,
Follow-up to that, but
Yeah. Well, there's just a short follow-up because, we talked about Black art today. You stressed today, So there's your spirituality from the back, from the oven to today.
Yeah.
Right? So how does your spirituality change and how do you see it in your work now?
Well, I don't think that it necessarily changed, spirituality changed. But I think
Matured, maybe.
growing older, it just sort of deepened. When I went to seminary, I had a professor by the name of Dr. Randall Bailey, who was very provocative in the way that he taught Hebrew Bible. And he broke out some stuff and introduced us to some things that we didn't see before. So he asked us to really look at what you've been told and examine it, and don't be afraid to question. And so he told us, he said, did you know that there's 2 creation stories in Genesis? He said, something wrong with this man already. There's only one. He says, no, there's 2. Let's read. And he says, I want you to read, and I don't want you to doubt what you're seeing. So part of maturity is not looking at what you're seeing today like you've always been told to see it, but to question it and appreciate how you see it. And I always say it's not what you see, it's how you see it that counts.
Yeah, okay, that's beautiful. I mean, you said say stuff without seeing it. You were making that, right? And then see stuff and say it.
Right. See and say it. Because if you see it, you need to say something about it. Silence is not golden. Silence can be avoidance. Silence can be neglect. Silence can be complicity. The one thing silence cannot do is challenge. You can challenge with your words, your voice, your thoughts, your painting, your art, and what have you. And if you're going to be about liberation in any kind of way, you got to challenge, because what you don't challenge doesn't change.
That's it. Amen. Thank you, Black Art Today. I think we landed with David.
Okay.
My last set. So Quirky, I've known you for a few years when you first came to Baltimore, and I got a DM or there was something online and it said, I'm looking for models, can somebody come out? And I was like, there's something about this message that doesn't seem weird, crazy, or scary. And I said, I'm a helper brother. And I reached out. And you were kind enough to say, come on over. And I drove 2 hours with my partner. And you did a very beautiful painting of her with her bass guitar. Now, we're talking about Black art today. And even when I look at how everyone is dressed, it's black and white.
Right? That wasn't even.
Right? And I'm wearing black and white. But the thing I'm gonna ask you is, why do you choose black and white primarily in your paintings?
Well, when I first started out, when I first came to Baltimore, I was really shy. I'm still very shy, and anxiety kills me. Like when there's a large group of people, I weird out when I leave. I don't stay long. So when I went to this one art event and I showed my work, I'm on this elevator with this little short lady. She kept staring at me. She said, "Hey, honey, how you doing?" And she started talking. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know you." And just being myself, but she wouldn't let up. And I did this black and white piece, and it was just stark black and white, nothing, just straight lines. It was beautiful, it was nice, but it was missing something. So this young lady, or older lady, everybody got up and talked about their artwork, and I did. I hid in the back. And she saw me, she ran up and grabbed me by my head, pulled me up on the stage, and then she looked at me and saw the shock and the fear in my eyes. And she said, "Baby, talk to me." And I started talking. And when I talked to her, her name was Bonnie, she passed a year or so ago. And I would talk to her, like it was just her, the only person I was talking to. And when I started doing the designs, I wanted a piece that highlighted what I felt about being in this area. The black and white, the has and have-nots, the people who have influence over your lives, and the people who really support you. And every once in a while, you'll find those true allies, whether they're black and white, that provide a little shame in them. And that's my whole commentary on my relationship with this the people who really, truly support me when I got here. It wasn't many. And now, a year or so later, I'm doing quite well as an artist. And that was my whole concept. Just, I wanted to highlight those true allies. They don't ride stark lines of separation. Those people who provide that blending with the moment. It's okay to come work with us. It's okay to be with us. It's okay to be around us, and we will support you. And the more that I promote that and find people who are like-minded, I've been doing pretty good. That's why I started doing that style.
Wow, that's totally opposite of what I would thought. You know, because it's more like a connection than it is a separation of black and white.
Yeah, it is. And usually most of the pieces, I do start white backgrounds. There's very few of them on black backgrounds, but I want to speak as much as humanly possible with little strokes as possible. It's like if I had a young lady I was interested in, I don't need a negligee. All I need is you and my teacher, simple, clean communication. That's where I can do it. It doesn't have to be overdone. I don't need glitter, I don't need gold, I don't need anything else. I just want to communicate with you as simply as possible.
And this is my last question for Quirky. Now, most of the work, especially your early work that I've seen, and this is over the past year and a half, maybe two almost, has been 2D.
Yes.
But you moved on into some very interesting 3D sculpting.
It was their fault. They invited me to their house. And I remember the day, I was like, who's the name of the artist? You collected a few of them.
Oh, you're talking about Karen Clark? Karen Clark. Or Woodrow Nash.
Woodrow Nash.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, that when I saw him, I hear my arm standing up, just thinking about it right now. And I was so inspired. I'm like, I can do this, and I can hopefully go a little further with it by using 3D modeling and sculpting. Matter of fact, every painting you see of mine is based off a 3D model that I built. It wasn't a record image or I pulled off the internet or somebody else's photograph. Everything I built, that way I could control the composition, the lighting, everything. And I have full control. It's an original piece you would never see anywhere else. So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the floor over.
You make it up, okay?
Quincy, it's your turn. You don't have any questions?
I'm honored to be here.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, back to the Dr. Chappelle. Now, this may seem odd, but you know, art is everywhere. You talked about use textiles. This piece behind is acrylic. you're also in the mental wellness field or mental health field.
Yeah.
And so do you find that the art that you're producing, no matter what the material, do you take into consideration how it can heal people mentally, like either common anxiety or, is that your focus?
No, it's not my focus, but I do recognize that art can heal. I have a friend that here in Baltimore, Paul Braswell,
Oh,
that
yeah.
deals with, art,
Art,
health
health,
and
and
healing. Exactly. So art is a healer, and there's different forms of art. You have drama, you have ministry, you have all types of art that can heal. So no, I don't take that into focus, but I recognize the fact that art is a healing, aspect. And people use it in different ways to heal. So, yeah.
Mhm. Okay. I've been looking at some branding videos and going to different places around Baltimore, like the Impact Hub, and taking visual branding courses.
Mhm,
And we're talking about color.
mhm.
So green does this and blue does
Right,
that.
right, different colors, bring out red, gray, black, cotton, it's all different things.
Mhm.
Art, I mean, people, again, art is in the eyes of the beholder. So if you look at this piece of art today, knowledge is power, of course, go and check it out. You're gonna look at it and it's gonna speak to you in different ways. A lot of people don't even see the number 2 pencil until I point it out. And the person's hand is over their head. And so, and the number 2 pencil is, there. And so what is that saying to you? Is he taking note, or is he just like, documenting what the experience that person is going through? So again, it's just speaking to them in a different way, Is he taking note about the book that he's reading? My husband has books everywhere in the house, throughout the house. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, Knowledge is power. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And art is powerful.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
very powerful.
Just sitting in this room right here, it's like I can feel the ancestors, I can feel the sun.
You can feel the unveiling. Right. Every piece of this art around here, as you look around, has, and you really focus on it, it can unveil a feeling, a spirit, David, not the fire in the oven, but a spirit of some sort, right? I mean, when I look at that piece back there with the woman with the hat, the top hat, to me, that speaks power.
Yes.
The lady in the other hat right there, she might, to me, it's just her struggle. And then Frederick Douglass over there, like he's trying to say something to us, like, hey, y'all behave over there, David. Get it together. And look at the men on the horses, right? They're just riding it out. But yet at the same time, they're checking it out and making sure that they're just keeping everything together. I mean, so every piece in here is saying something a little different to me. Look at Harriet's piece over there. That piece, when I sit there, I can just sit there and just reflect on that. And it just takes me to a different place in time, So, and the hands, reaching down and just helping somebody up. Knowledge is power. Then that piece that Porky just talked about, just pulling yourself up and resiliency and just having that strength to just endure. And look at that little girl over there with her book. I'm telling you.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. And it comes at all ages and all stages, right? I mean, we just a strong group of people. Yeah. So this is an excellent exhibit. If you haven't been out, y'all need to come out and check it out. We're here to the end of October. Come on.
All right. Well, thank you, audience, as well as the artists. We are going, unless the executive curator has anything, you're good? All right, thank you.
Again, thank you to Black Art Today for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.